Coming to you from Orange County, California, this is the JuggLife podcast with Max Ada and Chad Wesley Smith. Hey everybody, Chad Wesley Smith here, bringing you another episode of the JuggLife podcast, this time filming in front of a live studio audience, Kissimmee, St. Cloud, Florida. Coming to you from 2017 USAPL Nationals. Joined, almost as always, because we missed one.
I missed last week.
Yeah. It was a good one, though. Yeah. Probably made better by your absence, but... We're going to be talking about shot put things you wouldn't have
I would have been lost. Yeah. I would have felt awkward.
So front squats, you guys ever do those? Okay.
No. See you later.
Yes, joined as almost always by magnanimous Max Montana. How you doing, buddy?
I'm doing pretty well. How are you guys?
Good. How are you inside the camera?
How are the viewers?
And our special guest today, fresh off a 510 Wilks PR performance at USAPL Raw Nationals and third place in the 63 kilo class, Kristen Dunsmore. Hi, Chris.
Hi, Chad.
How are you this morning?
I feel good.
So Chris competed last night and probably, I think what has to be the most competitive weight class session of U.S. women's powerlifting ever. She was one of 4 athletes to go over a 500 Wilks. She was also one of 4 athletes, and one of these people who got 500 Wilks, because it was lower body weight, is not the same 4 people, but also 4 athletes who went over, met or exceeded what won Worlds at 63s this year, and this is just in the U.S., just one weight class, 4 girls over 500 Wilks. It wasn't that long ago that Jen Thompson was the first ever female powerlifter to exceed a 500 Wilks. That was maybe 5 or 6 years ago, I think, and now there's 4 in one weight class, including Jen Thompson, still the champion, with a new unofficial world record of 490 kilo total. But it was a very exciting session, very proud of Chris as her coach. She had a great performance, 7.5 kilo PR in the bench, 7.5 kilo PR in the deadlift. So, Chris, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself, kind of your education background, athletic background, what prompted you to move to California?
Okay. So I actually have my master's in exercise science from Syracuse. And that's, I think, what kind of got me into powerlifting in the first place is when I was going to school for my undergrad. I was working in a lab, and in order for me to work there, the guy basically was like, well, you can't lift like a girl. So, I was like, well, squat, bench, deadlift, and I was kind of good at it. And that's kind of how I fell into powerlifting. But I played sports pretty much growing up. I played basketball, which was like my main sport. I played soccer, and then I ran track kind of more as like an off season. So
anyone who's ever seen you do a box jump would know.
I'm really athletic, despite my box jumping capabilities.
So when you were doing your undergrad, you were working as like a research assistant. Mm-hmm. So you've worked in kind of a lot of research.
Yeah, I came actually from like more of a research-based background, and actually that's kind of like what I wanted to do at one point, was kind of go more of like the research route. And I still find it interesting, but I kind of like doing more the practical and like working with people directly, more on the coaching side of things now. But I still like keeping up to date. I just don't like doing the research as much.
And you finished your master's at Syracuse about 2 years ago?
2015, yeah.
2015.
Yeah.
And now you live in California.
Now I live in California. I'm from New York. I did my undergrad at University of Tampa. And then I was in Charlotte, North Carolina for like a couple months. And then I moved out to California to work for and train under Juggernaut with CWS.
Oh. Well, sounds like a handsome, brilliant person. So before we continue with Chris, we're going to take a quick break for a Strength History Minute. And this Strength History Minute is brought to you by Deadlifts and Diapers. It's a lifestyle, especially for some. Vasily Alexiev is undoubtedly the most accomplished heavyweight in the history of weightlifting, and quite possibly had one of the greatest singlets of all time to go with it. Alexiev set 80 world records during his illustrious career, which included gold medals in 1972 and 1976, and an 8-year run of world championships from 1970 to 1977. Standing 6'1", weighing around 350 pounds, Alexiev advanced the world records in the clean and press, clean and jerk, and total from 210.5, 221.5, and 595 when he first broke them in 1970, all the way to 236, 237, and 645. After his amazing career as an athlete, Alexiev went on to coach the USSR in the 1992 Olympics, where they earned 10 medals, including 5 golds. Alexiev made a point about training that is something everyone should take to heart. It's that everyone wanted to do his program when he was at the top, but you couldn't do his program because then it would be your program, so that you have to take your program and make it your own. So that Strength History Minute was brought to you by, was of Vasily Alexiev, owner of quite possibly the greatest singlet of all time. I don't know that singlet would be IPF legal, but you could pull the singlet off. It's a nice. It's a deep. It's beyond a V-neck. It's more like a U neck. Almost shows the top of his belly button.
It's basically a spaghetti strap Speedo.
Yeah.
if you could describe it anyway.
It's like a stringer.
A stringer
singlet.
Speedo.
Yeah.
Those are made out of wool, too. It's made out of, like, thick wool. Nice, comfortable padding everywhere.
Alexiev with that body in that wool singlet.
Woof.
Yeah.
Woof.
Yeah, so last night Chris had this fantastic performance, big PRs, and it's been about 10 months back of competing, but prior to that, you'd had to take some time off of competing to deal with some back injuries. So, yeah, so tell us about that process, kind of what the injuries were, how you were able to work through those both physically and mentally.
Yeah, so I think, well, actually, I'll start with my injury and then kind of how I dealt with it. There was no specific event that happened where I hurt my lower back, but there was no, I wasn't squatting, I wasn't deadlifting. I think it was just kind of like an overuse injury that I basically tried to ignore, and then obviously it didn't go away and get better. It just got worse and worse. To the point where there was times where I could literally not get out of bed. I couldn't even squat the bar without debilitating pain. I ignored it for a long time. So when I finally did go to get it checked out, I got an x-ray. There were, the degenerative discs. I have a disc of a 7-year-old woman. But there was really no definitive issue. I did get an MRI, and it showed that I had some bulging discs, and it was kind of pushing on my nerves, but it wasn't anything crazy. And then I think at one point they actually thought that I had a broken fractured spine, so I ended up getting a bone scan. So I don't really know exactly what the issue was. I think it was just kind of a combination and kind of ignoring it. I think you got me in contact with Quinn Hennick. And that's who, when I finally was okay, I got to stop being an asshole and, get this taken care of, because obviously it's not working on my own.
So you went to Quinn Hennick to learn how to not be an asshole?
Yeah. I had to go twice because the first time it didn't work.
Yeah.
No, so we did a Skype consult, and he kind of had me do all the, okay, do this, and this. And he kind of just said, it's... at this point, whatever injury was there, it's just you got to learn to, I guess, move and brace. I think he's a big bracing. It was this thing, so he gave me a lot of breathing exercises to do. But and I remember like talking to him, and I was like, oh, okay, like I'm, like I can lift like this breathing, like, what is this gonna do? But it helped. I did what he told me to do, and then kind of like slowly but surely, I was able to start putting, a little bit of weight on the bar. At first it was like, kind of discouraging, because here I am like, barely squatting 95 pounds, 135, and I'm like, oh my God, this sucks. This is so heavy. Why? And I guess kind of to talk about like the mental aspect of like the injury, which was actually really hard, probably much harder than kind of like, physically what I was going through. And, you're watching people who you've competed against getting stronger and feeling like, wow, am I ever going to be able to lift again? I'm not even going to come back and be competitive anymore. I should just, like give up. And that was really hard. And that's something that I think that a lot of, injuries are pretty common. It happens, but a lot of people don't really talk about more of like the emotional aspect of what, you're going through.
Were there any kind of things, is there any kind of advice or things you would say to somebody in that situation, like advice to deal with the mental side of it? Like to kind of get back on the horse, or, how to keep going?
Like I said, like there were definitely times where I thought that, like this is it, I'm done, I'm never going to be able to compete again. And that was hard, but like to be patient, do what you have to do, if you're not getting better, go see someone, who can help you. Don't, and everyone was always willing to offer me advice. I had, people telling me 101 different things, and each of them were different. It's like, go to one person, do what they tell you to do, and do it, don't half-ass it. Do it, and do it slowly. One of my biggest issues was I would start feeling better, and then immediately I was like, okay, my back is fine. I'm going to go from 0 to 100. And then, I would, the next day, I'd like mess my back up again. And it was kind of like I would start from square one. So, I think just kind of go slow. If you're smart about it, you will be back. You just have to be patient.
Yeah, I think that tip about patience is huge, and that's so much better. And I had 2 herniated discs, and I had seen my oldest brother have a lot of back issues, 3 or 4 surgeries, including a spinal fusion. And I saw days where his back hurt so bad, like he couldn't pick up his infant daughters. And I was like, well, nothing in life, no amount of weights lifted is worth that kind of pain and debilitation. So I was like, I want to take extra time to rehab and make sure it's done right. But so many times, and I've done this with my own injuries, other injuries, and seen so many people do it, is they feel good and it's right back in it. It's like if they would wait 1 extra week on the front end, they might be cutting months off of the total rehab in the long term, rather than get back into it 1 week too early, and then it re-aggravates it and adds another month to the rehab, and it's tough in the moment to think, as you've been away from something for 3 months or 6 months or a year, whatever it is, that you don't want to wait another day to get back to hard training when you feel like you can. But so many times waiting that extra week or 2 weeks goes a really long way to healing better. And I think something that, as you were going through the kind of rehab process, and we talked about it but didn't necessarily do it, but is sort of pivoting the goal for a little bit, pivoting the short-term goal. I think this is something that can be really useful for people coming back from an injury. Is, Kristen's long-term goal was to get back to powerlifting and being as competitive as possible with that. But in the short term, when she couldn't do hard training, then maybe the goal was to pivot and work on building more muscle and improving the diet, doing hypertrophy training with more bodybuilder style hypertrophy training, machine-based stuff that wasn't gonna bother her. So whatever the injury that you might be going through is, if you can keep the eyes on the long-term goal, certainly whatever that is for you, but in the short term, pivot to something that's more manageable, but still gives you something to kind of chase in the short term, so you can stay motivated towards, improve physique, improve diet, whatever it is, in the short term, and that can kind of keep you going while still working towards the greater good of the long-term goal.
Yeah, that's a big one. It seems like there's always, people seem to lose sight when you get hurt, that there's always something you can do, even if it's just as simple as like the mental side of training, like, developing, spending time every day to focus on thinking about technique, or, getting comfortable with different stuff, learning the technique, coaching other people to kind of build your own experience. In weightlifting and more technical sports, like if you start coaching somebody, you're going to start seeing the lift more from a different perspective, and that might help you later, even though you can't do it. So there's always something you can do when you're hurt, right?
Yeah, I think there's always a positive to be taken away from it. But it's been great to see you come back and have really three great meets in a row. And part of the reason you've been able to be so successful is that you're so muscly.
So muscly.
Yeah, she was wearing a T-shirt before, and we're like, you have to put on a tank top and show off your muscles. That's what the internet likes.
I'm a little bloated today.
Well, and so that's perfect segue. That's what us in the podcast business call a segue, right there. Bloated because of the water cutting. So you have to be all muscly like you are. Probably the most muscular person in the 63 kilo class, and kind of on the taller side of things.
Yeah.
You gotta be real sharp on the diet. So you tell us a little bit about your diet, and then so the water cut process, and how that was, how uncomfortable that was, I guess, getting ready for this meet.
So yeah, I compete as a 63, but I definitely don't walk around as a 63. In the off season, I'm probably around like 66, 67 kilos. Holidays, it might be a little bit more, but typically, yeah. So, I mean, this time around was a lot easier because I actually maintained a lower body weight. The last one was a little bit harder. So this time was the first time that I actually think I did an official water cut. I think before then I would actually just cut down to my weight class. So it was kind of unnerving a few days before, where I was like, oh my God, I'm a kilo over. It's like, am I going to make weight? But, I had Joanna Ada help me, and she told me, and I was like, all right, I trust you. And it worked. I made weight. I weighed in at 62.9. It was the water cut. It actually wasn't that bad. I think I was just a kind of little baby.
I'm glad that we have that on video. So when you're water cutting for the next meet,
we'll bring that clip back up.
Yeah.
I was just thirsty, and everyone was like eating pizza and donuts, and I was like, oh, well, here's my dry, unflavored chicken. Great. But to help me get to, other than my water cut, I do a slight weight cut beforehand. And because I kind of walk around relatively lean, I guess I shouldn't say weight loss, it's fat loss. So I want to maintain as much muscle as I have while cutting body fat, which is, I'm pretty sure, everyone's goal. So I do, it's called the RP Otto diet templates. I do the cutting templates really only when I'm cutting for the meet. Otherwise, my goal is to either mass or maintain. And they really focus on utilizing carbs around your workouts. So, kind of depending if I'm training in the morning or I'm training later at night. And also how intense my workouts are will kind of dictate how many carbs I get, or number one, around my workout, and then throughout the day. And that's kind of helped me to, not really lose much strength, while I'm cutting, which I think can be an issue for a lot of people.
So there's a distinction too, right, between water cut and weight loss or fat loss, where before you were just dieting down and reducing calories more and more until you eventually got to your actual body weight stabilized at the weight class.
Yeah.
Versus your weight is stable about 2% above the weight class, and then you use water manipulation to actually reduce it temporarily the day of the meet or the day of the weigh-in to the actual weight class, and then you return immediately after that to your normal stable weight.
Yeah, so like I said, I walk around at about like 66 kilos. So I cut down to 64 and a half. And then I did basically I water cutted from 64 and a half. So that was like a kilo and a half water cut that I did throughout, was it 3 days, 4 days, where I water cut to make the 63. So I weighed in at 62.9.
And you know, the real big advantage with that, when you're looking at cutting weight, 2 hour weigh in, 24 hour weigh in, whatever it is, you want to be the lightest weight, the weight that you weigh in at for the shortest amount of time possible. So you probably only weighed 63 kilos and under, 63 to 62.9, what you weighed in at, from maybe an hour before the weigh-in until 15 minutes after the weigh-in.
Yeah.
10 minutes, 5 minutes after the weigh-in.
Like 30 seconds.
Yeah. And that's optimal because the longer you can keep calories up a little bit, you're going to be able to hold on to more muscle because you certainly don't want to be losing muscle mass as you go into a meet. And we'll have more info about 2 hour weight cuts and water manipulation and stuff with a video we're doing with Joanne soon, so be on the lookout for that. So once we got past the water cut, all weighed in and everything, what's your recap, your impression and feelings about your performance last night?
Overall I'm happy. It was a total PR. I PR'd squat, or I didn't PR squat. I PR'd my bench and my deadlift. The only one I'm kind of bummed about is my third attempt, which was 178 kilos. That I just missed. I wasn't high. I failed it. And as to why, I could come up with 101 different reasons as to why I missed it, but it wasn't there yesterday.
She's lying. It was there. It's because your weight shifted back in your foot.
Okay. Well,
you had a Lewis Simmons in your head saying back, back, back.
Take it.
Yeah.
Back, take it, yeah.
So I tend to, with my squat, I don't know, if you've ever watched the video, is my knees come inward a lot. And I think that could actually, hinder. It's something that I've been trying to work on, but it still, as the weight gets heavier, it still becomes an issue for me. And that what happens is my hips shoot up first, and then so it's, I don't know, it's a really awkward position, I feel like.
Yeah, I think the gist of it is that you don't do all the things that I say.
Yeah.
And then
not a good strategy in the squat.
Well, my goal is to hit that and then some at my next meet. So
your bench press was
I was really
super impressive yesterday.
I kind of surprised myself how well I did 102 and a half, which is 226 pounds. And it flew up. I was kind of impressed. I was like, oh, wow, that felt really good. And yes, I asked Chad yesterday, I was like, can we just do 100? Because after the squat, I was kind of nervous and I didn't want to miss any more because, I had already missed my squat, which is my best lift. So I asked him if we could do 100 kilos instead of 102. And he basically was like, no, bitch, you're gonna. He didn't say the end. He did. I
only thought the second part, and that's why I never listened to you. And a great deadlift as well.
Yeah. So my previous deadlift has always been when I was injured, the lift that always hurt me the most was the deadlift. So mentally, that's always been a struggle for me. I'm not confident in the lift. And it's hindered me a lot. So anytime the weight would get heavy or feel heavy, or I'd feel pressure in my lower back, I'm like, I'm done. So the deadlift specifically has always been my least confident lift. And even anytime I'm going for heavy, it's not aggressive. It's oh shit, it freaks me out. So I was really happy yesterday that I did 446, so that was 202 and a half. The most I've ever pulled in the gym this training cycle was I think it was supposed to be 412, and then I misloaded it. So it was like 407, and it was really ugly, and it was bad. But yeah, I'm really happy with how I did yesterday, especially my deadlift and squat. I feel like I had a lot left in the tank, so I'm kind of bench and deadlift. I'm really excited to see what I'm capable of this next training cycle, to see, like, I feel like I definitely had left some in the tank yesterday. So
Your deadlift was really fluid.
It's used. Yeah.
There was nothing left in the tank. Some tanks.
So I pee when I deadlift. I don't know. It's kind of hard to see in the videos,
Is it hard to see in the videos?
But I do. And I don't even care anymore. I think initially the first couple of times that it happened, I was like really embarrassed and, like, oh my God, everyone just saw me pee. But now I'm just like, whatever, like, it happens. It's something that, I've been trying to address, and so something I'm still working on. But, as the weights gets heavier, it's still an issue.
What's the title of your article, Female Incontinence and Strength Training?
Something like that, yeah.
Chris has a whole article about it.
I wrote an article. I kind of, so maybe we can link it or something if you're interested. But it's definitely an issue, and it's kind of interesting to see how common it is. I mean, there's a lot of women and I think a few men from yesterday's.
It's definitely
I think there's
really?
a guy. Yeah. Huh. I think.
What? Okay. That guy's just peeing for the sake of peeing. I can tell you right now.
Just a laziness of not wanting to walk to the bathroom.
You know what? It's male incontinence too, guys.
All incontinence matters. Male incontinence matters.
The thing that's impressive to me from a coaching standpoint is that you've mentally gotten past that, where sometimes, and you see it a lot with beginners, people, maybe they have an issue with it, and it just becomes a thing that now is a problem. And even though you did it, and other people do it, like, it didn't stop anything. No. So your 202 just kept moving as though nothing was happening, which is kind of,
tell me it's badass.
Well, right? Yeah, it is. It's like whatever you just did what you had to do to make the lift. And
Kathy Marksteiner was pissed at you for pissing all over the platform.
Oh yeah,
she had told someone earlier, like, don't you pee on my platform. I don't think she said it quite in that same voice that I used.
I mean, it's not like I'm like doing it on purpose.
She was the opposite side for me, and she was on the opposite side for me in the coach's box. As it was happening, as you're locking out, she's just like,
What are you gonna do? How are you gonna stop it?
But
I mean, it's not like I actively try, I try not to, but it happens. So
where should people contact you for golden shower?
My DMs.
Okay.
Yeah, it's not cheap.
Golden shower rates in there. On that note, we're going to take another quick break. If you are a female strength athlete or coach female strength athletes, Marissa Inda, 3-time USAPL national champion now and IPF world champion, has some very important information for you in her book, Fuerza. That's the proper pronunciation. Fuerza, a female's guide to strength and physique. So take a little look at that here. All right, so make sure you go check out Marissa's book. So looking at training for female athletes and your experience training and competing, what, or maybe a couple pieces of advice you would have for women maybe nervous to start powerlifting or just kind of getting started in strength training?
Yes. So actually, my first meet was back in January of 2014, And I had been lifting for a while. I wanted to do a meet, but I was always like really too nervous to like actually go through with it. So I'd always like, oh, there's a meet, I'm gonna do it, I want to do it, and it would like I was just too scared. I could find every reason not to sign up. So I think my mom actually like signed me up for a meet.
Oh, wow.
She's like, yeah, I like, cause she knew it, like I would talk about it and like would never follow through. So I think she, was like, no, you're gonna do it. And so actually, it's funny, at the time, I think there was like 3 girls that did it. It was like a small local meet in New York. I was super nervous. So at one point, the lady who I was giving my bench attempt, this is my like the first meet, and I gave her my attempt, and she told me no. And she was like, that's too easy for you. Like you have to at least do, and I don't even remember what the weight was. You have to at least do this. And I was like, oh, okay. And I did. And I think I went 9 for 9 that meet. Because I was way, like people were like, you left, so much left. But I think for women, it can be intimidating, as you see these women who, like, wow, yes, I benched 226. If you were to tell me that 3 years ago, I would have been like, you're crazy. The first time I think I ever benched was like 65 pounds. So, I'm so strong. So yeah, I think if you're new to lifting, just sign up for a meet. Don't cut weight. Just have fun with it. Just do it. And get that out of the way. The strength will come. Like I said, when I first started, I benched like 65 pounds, and just, we all start somewhere. So, don't compare yourself to other people, kind of comparing each meet. Just try to do better than you were before. That's really it. And have fun.
So what are some goals going forward that you have maybe for the next year of powerlifting?
Well, I kind of want to see where my bench goes. So I think, like a 2, like put numbers, I guess over the next year, 242 bench. My squat, I've always wanted weight 4 plates on each side. So that's 405 pounds. That would be really cool, but like, again, I don't want to, if it's not there, it's not there. I'm not going to push it. So, if it's there, I'll do it. If not, then, I don't. And deadlifts, I think, like I said, that was always a lift that I've always been intimidated by. And I think that's the lift that I had the most room for improvement for. And I think because now I think I finally found my groove and I've gotten my technique down, that I think that there's definitely I'm definitely really interested to see what I can do with deadlift. So.
You gonna do the Arnold?
Yeah.
Guess we're just figuring this out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, why not?
All right. Sounds like a plan.
Okay. Guess I'm doing the Arnold. Problem solved.
All right. So that is Kristen Dunsmore. Chris, thanks so much for joining us on this fine Florida morning.
Well, thank you for having me.
If you are a fan of the JuggLife podcast and you like what we talk about here, please go on iTunes, give us a 5-star review, and you can write something and maybe email me, and might send you something for free. Who knows? Like D. Shive did, said, my favorite podcasts, CWS and Mighty Max Montana, have chemistry like 2 bros should. I could listen to these guys all day. Plus the best introductions in the game on YouTube. Well, that last part, that is just without a doubt true.
Absolutely true.
Yeah, it's all thanks to Shorty. Shorty is
a wizard with the camera and the editing software.
He edited your legs to look like Carl Weathers.
That was crazy. He did the whole thing. I already had the leanness and the athleticism. Clearly by the running style, you can tell that.
Who do you think would win with a box jump, me or Max?
Probably me.
Yeah.
Really?
I could have Shorty edit in anybody I want.
Shorty would just edit Max's head onto James Townsend's body.
Done. Win. I've got a wig.
So yeah, please go leave us a review. That's going to help more people find the JuggLife and hopefully learn some ways to lift things better. For upcoming events, because I don't know when this episode is actually going to air, just visit store.jtsstrength.com under the events section. We'll have seminars and stuff up there. For online coaching, juggernautcoaching.com, powerlifting, weightlifting, super total. Kristen is also one of our online coaches for Juggernaut online coaching for powerlifting, as well as a customer service rep for RP. So if you are on the RP website between the hours of 4:30 and 8 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, you could be chatting with Chris. Is there a Skype option for the customer service there? No? Okay. Well,
That's only the golden shower one.
yeah, so make sure to check that out for coaching. As always, we'd love it if you subscribe to the YouTube. We try really hard at the videos we put up here and are very proud of that content. So the PBS of Fitness YouTube, you can come and be bored but educated by our lecture videos and occasionally entertained by our ridiculous movie parodies. Chris, where can they find you on the internet?
Chris D. So KRIIS_D is my Instagram, and then Facebook is just Kristen Dunsmore. I don't have Twitter. I don't tweet.
Yeah, I've never been big on the tweeting.
Yeah, I don't do Twitter. You
Max?
can find me Max_Ada on Instagram or Facebook, or you can email me maxjtsstrength for any questions about the online programming.
All right, and I'm Chad Wesley Smith at Chad Wesley Smith and at Juggernaut Training on Facebook and Instagram, filling up your news feed all day. Thank you for watching or listening, however you take your jug life, and we will see you next week. Thank you.